study,
and play come together on a Windows 11 PC.
And for a limited time, college students get
The best of both worlds.
Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
This is Bridges Burned with Megan and Amy.
We already paid the price for telling the truth, so now nothing is off limits.
The bridges are behind us, and we're on the other side of the fire. Jonadia Rock is a Montreal-born former track athlete who transitioned to basketball at 17, competing at the university level, the Olympics, and professional levels overseas. She attended Florida State University and earned a degree in communication studies with a minor in applied information technology from the University of Windsor. Jonadia has coached and mentored athletes throughout Toronto while working with the Toronto Raptors and other basketball organizations, and she now serves as a detective constable with the Toronto Police Service. Thank you so much for joining us, Jonadia.
How are you doing?
Good.
Thanks
now,
for having
it's
me.
really interesting because Jonadia is one of my oldest and dearest friends. So it's so weird doing research on your friends. And then I saw that when you started playing basketball around the time your father passed away at 17, but you were just so good. I thought you were playing your whole life. What role did basketball play for you during that period of life?
To be honest with you, I truly enjoyed being a track athlete. Like you mentioned, going through my biography, it's kind of weird listening about yourself. But basketball, my track coach introduced me to basketball, and truly, I always enjoyed watching basketball. But I think what really drew me to it is that the team aspect. When you're a track athlete, unfortunately, you are doing individual sports. And during that time of grieving my dad, and although I truly always had gear to watch the game, I just didn't have the skill set. I was fortunate to genetically be athletic through track and my dad, that it drew me more to the sport because you were surrounded by teammates, you're surrounded by friends, you're surrounded by support. And so I had an ambition to take on something new, and I like to challenge myself. And so I thought to myself, what better way through a sport that I'm not really familiar with? And I ran with it. I worked on trying to be the best athlete I could possibly be in this sport in itself. I loved how there was different aspects to it and what avenues you can get out of it. Particularly, my main goal was to get an education, get my education paid for. I wanted to be the first in my family to have a university degree. My parents did not go to university, so I realized that you can get scholarships. So I set a goal that I'll be the first in my family to get a degree while playing something I was truly enjoying at the time. So I am very fortunate with the time and the coaches that I had throughout the aspect of being so raw and new into the sport. And to be able to play the next levels up after that, I got an opportunity to play with our Canadian national team. When I was in Shijap with Amelia at Vanier, I was considerably one of the youngest player to make the Canadian national team at the time. I was 20 going into 21, and it was a great opportunity. We didn't compete in the Olympics that year, but I was playing with one of the best athletes in our country. So it was a great experience to be part of that and training with them. And moving forward, I was able to get a scholarship to Florida State University.
And sorry, you started playing basketball at what age? You said 17?
17. So I saw basketball at 13. 13 is around 13, 14 is when my dad passed. I was in high school. Again, if we go through difference between Montreal and Ontario's
The rest of the
school
world.
system and the rest of the world. Yeah, exactly. In Montreal, as you know, Amy, that we start high school in grade 7. So it's a totally different perspective. We don't have grade 12. So you do high school grade 7 to grade 11. And so during that time, I played a little bit, but organized basketball, playing on travel teams, AU teams. I started playing at 17 is when I actually initially got introduced to high competitive basketball.
Always so impressed by someone who can just play and just be really good. Like, I'm trying to learn how to do a cartwheel right now, and I can't. So that is always so impressive to me.
It's crazy. So we went to college together, CJIP, and Jonadia was playing basketball and I was taking journalism. So I wrote this big article on the women's The Cheetahs, was that it?
Yes, yeah, that's
Yeah,
correct. The
the
Cheetahs.
Vanier
Yeah.
Cheetahs, their women's basketball team versus the attention the men got. I wrote that like almost 20 years ago. Looking back at that, I wish I still had it. I think it's on a floppy disk somewhere. Um, what has changed in the 20 years for women in basketball and what hasn't?
So you talk about floppy disks. I'll actually go there. I think what has truly changed sports overall, not just for me in basketball, the social media platform. I think if we look back to when we were in CEGEP in college, I remember those days sitting, I don't know if you remember, I was in those studios with the old school VHS and I was sticking them in two TVs and like rewinding, fast forward and editing. And I mentioned that because that social media platform back then, when you need to get exposed sports wise and you wanted to get offered a scholarship, you had to make your highlight tape, a highlight reel. And I would spend hours sitting there. I was in communication studies, studying in, actually in CSHIP, I was studying in Law and Society, but I always had a keen for media stuff. But you spend hours making all these tapes and the cost, it cost me to send that off to Europe or the States. I'm paying $75 US to send one little big VHS off to the States for someone to say, hey, look at me. This is how well I play. Can you give me a scholarship? But now we have a social media platform that has completely changed the aspect of the game. You can pick up a cell phone, record yourself at a basketball game, either it's TikTok, Instagram, whatever it may be in that social media platform, and they can get a glimpse of us without having to even show up at our game. So they've already got a preview of what you can offer before even making the drive down or the fly down to wherever you're living. Because we're talking about me as a Canadian athlete, they're flying out of different states coming to see us play. Like very few chances you're going to have someone coming to your school. Back then you were, and we're in a different aspect. If I even compare Canada to the US, US is so much more exposure to media and all the above from the start of high school. There's no one coming to your high school games. There's about 10 classmates in your gym, okay? In comparison, you go to a high school, a men's high school game in the States, and you're talking about hundreds to 1,000 at a basketball game, right? They really value their sports there. And it's not that we don't value our sports, we just don't have that much resources when it comes to that exposure. So I'll say that's the biggest thing that's changed, is being able to have that social media platform. And then over time, as athletes get more exposure and names, we start figuring out who are the key players into our sport. Like in basketball, when WNBA started, you're talking about Sure Swoops moving into Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird, all these athletes that set the tone for us and pave the way, and now we're talking about Caitlin Clark, Aja Wilson, our Canadian Kia Nurse representing us for the Tempos. So the Toronto Tempos. So over time, as we now get that exposure socially, it does help 20 years later. I'm still not saying that women's sports is still at the level of men's sport, but at least we have some kind of platform can assist us to get a little bit more exposure.
I even know who Caitlin Clark is, only because of last week. I saw the video of her getting pushed around in the game, and then Cunningham, is that her name?
Yeah.
She ripped the girl down on the ground. I was like, I'm watching this now.
Yeah.
I'm a fan now.
Yeah. No,
So it
for
does
sure.
help. And social media does
Yeah.
help.
It totally does. I mean, it and sometimes in some ways can be a hindrance, right? Like we see sometimes, unfortunately, when you have so much exposure to social media, some negativity can actually be drawn in the wrong way. But it has been beneficial in the way that of that bit more exposure, right? If we're not getting WNBA, if you don't have, I mean, people are doing, I don't know about you, about IPV streaming, but if you don't have access to cable, you may not get access to those games, right? The men's teams, NBAs are on the late night popular stations, whereas our women's games, unless you have some kind of special package to see those games, at least you can get the highlight reel on social media, and you're like, oh man, I need to find a way to get to see the games, right? So I think that kind of, if that answers the question, I think that's probably something that's really guide and helped a little bit more.
So you played for the NCAA basketball in the US, where the men's game often gets the biggest crowds, like we were just saying, media attention and March Madness spotlight. What differences did you personally feel between the men's and women's environments when you were there?
I mean, if I think of, first of all, like I said, I was telling you the comparison with the States. There's a little bit more geared to sports in the States, right? They are a lot of support and sponsorships when it comes to sports in general in the US versus Canada. And some states are highly in certain sports, either football, like for example, like I was at Florida State. Bobby Bowden was the biggest coach there. And so football was probably getting more of the attention. Again, a men's sport, male dominant sport, but women's games, you can actually honestly tell the women's games are usually played before the men's. And so people are waiting and preparing for the men's game before the women's. It's almost like when I think back when I was playing here in Canada, we travel with the men's team, and the women would play before the men. The games would be earlier, and it's during close to the dinner time. So everyone's like, well, I'm just going to go out and eat. And then they show up after, right? So, and they kind of get a glimpse of our game. So it was drastically different. There was still, unless you are truly successful as a program, you would see more fans. But if you're not having that much success, obviously they're not racing to watch the women's game. So that aspect definitely changes. But now, like I said, we have these pioneers and these athletes that, they're coming to play. So the bigger games, if we were going to play against Caitlin's team when she was in the NCAA, of course, we're going to get more fans, right? So it's a matter of now recognizing who's the best players in the next teams. And I think that will draw more attention. But I think we're getting better. We're not on par, but we're getting there.
Question for you, because like you were talking about, in the States, there's sponsorships and there's even talk about paying these athletes. When it comes to the actual education versus, if you're there for a scholarship, do you feel like people are getting the education they need, or are they there to play a sport?
Yeah, it's a funny topic, because I think about when I was back then. If you were to compare, you get lost into, I think obviously now with NIL right now, like you're getting endorsements, sponsorship, and it's something we wanted, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Over time, you want to be kind of making some kind of financial means. You went to get a scholarship because you can't afford to go to school, right? The tuition's expensive, but it comes with a purpose. So if I even think about going professionally overseas and the US, in comparison, you are now almost like a professional player, if you think about it, because you're getting paid to play technically. So is a focus academic? It's a great question. You want to say yes. They say student athlete is what is preached. But obviously, when you're committed to a team, athlete kind of comes a little bit ahead. But they do a great job. For me, an example, they do a great job in ensuring that you are keeping a GPA. So back then there was incentives where you weren't playing or keeping your scholarship unless your GPA was above 3.5. Okay, so that's like in the 85, 90 to 100, right? So you had to keep a certain grade in order to actually maintain your scholarship. So that was different. And I can't speak to now when you have the NIL how different that can be, because some players may be just going to school because they're getting an NIL and it really may not matter to them. But back then, there was that incentive. You had to, if you did not get that GPA, you were not going to play and your scholarship was not going to be renewed, right? So they made a focus on ensuring that every athlete had a tutor. I had a tutor for every subject. Every subject I had a tutor. Now, I came from CEGEP, so I had a little bit more experience. I was an older freshman going to the States. My teammates were 17 and never seen writing an essay, right, with citations, right? So they've never had that experience of how to reference without doing plagiarism. Whereas I had more experience being in college, and back then, there was consequences if you fail, and it's totally different now and how things work. And transferring schools, there was a penalty. You had to sit out a year. Now there's a transfer portal. You don't have that consequence, so people can go to teams, where normally you have to commit those 4 years to that program and that team, right? So it is drastically different when it comes to that. I would hope academics is the most important still.
This summer, serve up the Cookout Classics, Oscar Mayer hot dogs and Heinz mustard. Grill up a dog, add classic yellow mustard, or loaded Chicago style. We all know it's not a cookout without Oscar Mayer and Heinz.
LinkedIn's AI-powered job search can help you find the most relevant roles based on your goals and experience. It cannot help you find something to talk about in the elevator.
So, ride any dragons this weekend?
It can help you find your next job just by describing it in your own words. It cannot stop your coworker from describing their dreams.
So I was flying, right?
And while we can't help you advance in the office foosball tournament, LinkedIn can help you advance in your career. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
But back then, like at least they ensured that you were trying to keep that GPA. And if they knew you were going to drop down in your grading, they were going to get you a tutor. They were going to find a way, or just reduce your course load, right? So
So you played in Iceland as well, representing Canada. What was that
Mhm.
experience like, and how is it different from playing here or in North America in general?
So going overseas is different. Again, we're going back like when was in Iceland, 2010. So we're going back a couple years. But it was a big deal back then. If you were not going to make the WNBA, the next transition was to go play overseas, right? And if I talk about playing overseas, so WNBA has such a short window anyway. So most of the athletes you see in WNBA do play overseas. Um, the difference from college back then and even now is that it was a bit more professional. You were being paid to play, right? You were there as a professional athlete. You had room and board. You know, you were either given a home, car, all the above, and there was incentives. I remember when I was in Iceland, it was like I had to score a certain amount of points a game to see a bonus, to get a bonus check. So it was different. It was more like a business, right? Like you are here as a professional athlete and you have to. So in some ways, some people may not like it and some may have, because you're away from your family. So it could be a little bit lonely in your foreign country. It could be a culture shock to some. Or to many, because now you're in a different country. Can you speak the language? How are you surviving this country with a change in culture and language barrier? Because I remember getting on my team, I was like, okay, how am I going to communicate with my teammates? And I didn't speak the language. So at least one of them spoke English. And so I said, okay, for every play or certain word, let's use a number. Like it was the easiest thing, like teach me in numbers. And then that way I was able to figure out how to communicate with them. But basketball's basketball, right? The sport's always the same, but in terms of the other aspect of communication was totally different. So I think that's the part that is totally different. And when you think of WNBA athletes, they spend most of their seasons actually overseas before going to play in the WNBA. And I'm sure you guys are going to transition to this, but back then they weren't being paid as much as WNBA. So they would spend more time staying overseas. Some probably would not even come back to WNBA because they were being paid more. So if you think about it, we are progressing in a way, but at the same time too, like we are still far, no matter what sport you think about, soccer, anything, like we got lots to catch up on.
Yeah, I think so. It just came out recently that the women in the WNBA are getting pay raises, if you will, because there was a big thing a couple of years ago that the mascot was making more than some of the players. So,
God.
so looking back at that now and noticing the meaningful progress for women in the sport over time, how do you feel about that?
I think it's huge because, like I mentioned, like you think about, like I mentioned, like Diana Taurasi, like she was playing in Russia when she was doing her downtown. And the thing is like they had to commit to like a full all year round of playing, right? Just to make ends meet, just to make money. So I think it also gives more incentives, encourage more to want to join the WNBA as well. Knowing that they can benefit more. And I mean, obviously, like you're passionate about the sport. It shouldn't be about the money, but at the end of the day, like you are a professional athlete, right? I think that, you're passionate about a sport. You've worked so hard to be where you are today. Why not be on the same level of, making the same affordable salary in something that you are working hard and sacrificing your body every day?
So, a more personal question, do you ever reflect, because you were good, you are a very good basketball player, you played with men, and do you ever wonder what your career path might have looked at if you were a man playing basketball?
It's hard to say. I definitely would have had more exposure and probably maybe more opportunities, but I think that I'm appreciative of my situation and my circumstance I feel that my experiences and my messages throughout my time and my interactions, as an athlete, being a female, playing with men, playing on men's team, I enjoy being the fact that I could be a role model to others. I think that in this platform, it allows me to show, hey, if I can do it, you can do it too. And I'm not saying that not every female can come and compete with men, but to make them understand that we can make some kind of connect and say that we can play the same sport. We can play on the same leveling field in some ways, in some kind of aspect. And also it pushed me and challenged me to be better. It challenged me to be at my best. It challenged me to play at a higher level, and learning from the men's game. We're genetically not made up the same. Obviously, I'm not going to be dunking. I'm not going to be, certain things that we just genetically, our genetic makeup are not capable of doing. But learning from playing with men and interacting with men has gave me a total perspective on the game, my personal sport, basketball, playing with men, and then playing against women in general, and how I coach, how I mentor, how I encourage them to be successful in their own way, whatever sport it is. I don't only mentor and coach in basketball. Like right now, I do it with my boys. I want to raise them as great humans, but great men coming into the world. And we do multi-sports and train them. And here they are learning from us women as parents, going into a different playing field, right? And understanding the challenges that we go through, and they come and see and watch me play. And, my youngest, who's 3, he would turn and say, I remember we took him to a basketball program and they said, "Hey, who do you love watching? Like, who's your favorite player?" And he said, "My mommy." So, it's a proud moment, and I love that. I love that for them. Listen, at the end of the day, I'm just happy they picked the sport. You know what I mean? I just want them to be involved with sports. I don't want to push and press them to basketball, but they'll have to play in the driveway. So at the end of the day, I don't want them to dislike the sport over time. Basketball will always be there. It's the cheapest sport to actually get a pair of shoes and a ball. Hockey gears are very expensive and cold. At the end of the day, they love it, so I'll support it all the way.
What do you think sports brings to children and their confidence?
There's a lot, because in sports, you have to talk, right? You're building that confidence of how to become leaders. If I think about all the different skill sets that I've learned and life skills I've gained from being an athlete is, how to be a good teammate. How to respect your authorities. So, over times, like where you are in a position, whether individual sports or team-oriented sports, you have a coach, you have a trainer, you have a manager. So it's understanding the different roles as an athlete. So those are skill sets you can bring into life, teach you discipline, how to deal with adversity. Obviously, right, you're not always going to be successful. How do you deal with losses and wins? How do you control those emotions, and how do you gear it to wanting to get better? To improve? How do you value your teammates? So I definitely think for me personally, I've maintained a lot of experiences through sports. I talked about there's time management. You also gain how to become a leader. You don't just lead, I talked about talking, but you can lead by example, or you could be this outspoken leader. Leading by example is showing up on time, being the first to complete a task, whatever it may be. So being leadership by example is also just as valuable as leading vocally.
What led you to make the transition from basketball to policing?
The transition to policing. It's funny, I never looked at policing, but Amy, I don't know if you remember too, like for me, I was always community involved. That was a key thing in my life, especially when I lost my dad. That supported the community and all those resources that I get through community. And so I enjoy giving back. I think when you get into policing is understanding to being selfless, your service to the public, your service to others. So that transition was fairly easy, but it wasn't brought up by myself. Policing was introduced to me through basketball again. I was playing on a men's team, and there was a Toronto men's basketball team competing in our league. I had that interaction with one of the players. So when I saw those Toronto police written on their jersey, I was like, oh, these guys must be police officers. Like they're representing the police. But I'm like, they're playing in the league. Like you can play sports and still be an officer. They're human, but obviously I didn't know you can represent your service. So after having that interaction with them and them making me understand that they do a lot of community involvement outside of just serving the public, it's not just about, stopping crime. But the great thing about it is that all these community involvement that they do is another way for the public to see us, because we are human. We are citizens of the community, right? At the end of the day, I am a citizen of the community. I'm not just an officer. Like when I'm in uniform, I'm an officer, but I am also a citizen. So that representation through all this community work. So that transition was very easy for me when it came to that, because I realized all these skill sets that I gained through sports, they were similar. You think about I talked about the different roles as an athlete, right? When you're on a basketball team, I was fortunate to be a captain in all the teams I played on. And I understood that my role was to report to my coach. So I was kind of almost like, when you think about policing, a supervisor, a mini supervisor. Those things kind of mirrored up when it came to policing. Understanding your role, understanding your rank in policing. And at the end of the day, policing is also a team environment, because you work with a partner and then you work in a platoon. And a platoon can be as many as 35 officers or more. And so that's a team. And that team is working to fulfill an ultimate goal, serve the public for the amount of hours you're on shift. So at the end of the day, I found that transition was pretty easy, because not only that, all these skill sets and the job itself can prepare you for the different things you're actually going to deal with. You are interacting with public. When you're an athlete, you are serving the public. You're serving them with an entertainment. Correct. Right. So it's kind of the same thing. So that transition was fairly easy for me, and I was excited about it, and understanding that there's so much to offer in policing. So I 10 years in, and I'm still enjoying it. Every day I'm learning. It's something new. And I know that there's something new for me every year, that I decide to pursue a different part of chapter in my career.
For young women who might see your journey, hear your journey, athlete or somebody who wants to become a first responder, what would you want them to take away from your story?
At the end of the day, I mentioned earlier, there's many that done it before me. But I do realize that women are probably not as interested, or not that they're not interested, maybe there's that fear to join policing in a male dominant world. And they get sometimes people get focused on that initial aspect of the job. It is physically demanding and mentally demanding. It is a high-paced, stressful job, but policing is so diverse, and it requires so many different people and different life experiences, male or female. And it's rewarding. So I think what I want them to take out of is that policing and being an athlete has such a large impact in my life. And it's providing me with a journey with so much opportunities, like beyond opportunities. I give you a perfect example, even right now, making that connection. I worked with Toronto Raptors before policing, and that connection with the Toronto Raptors has gave me the experience into policing and how we police at Raptors games. And I realized that some of the staffing were police officers before they actually worked for the Toronto Raptors. So there's so many different connections and networking that you're going to build through that. So I think that the benefit is understanding too, like, it's not just about, we are seeing people at the most vulnerable time in their life, obviously, in the main initial aspect of policing, right? Like, it's the most vulnerable time in your life is seeing the fact that you wouldn't know that there's so much more you can offer in this job. It's not just stopping someone in the street for, a petty crime of stealing at a store. But at the end of the day, there is so many other points to this job that you are going to make a difference. The sacrifice you're going to make and willingness to save others. If you are looking for a purpose and you like helping people, like, I would say this is a journey for you. Not everyone can do it. Obviously, I'm risking my life every day to put others before me, but so many has put themselves before me to help me in my life that I want to give back. So I hope that's what people would take from my journey and the experiences that I've gotten through being an athlete and transitioning to police, and the fact that I can still be an athlete while being an officer. I still compete with the Toronto men's basketball team. I still have that connection with coaching and competing. And police, fire, we actually have our own kind of Olympics. It's the World Police Fire Games. And I was fortunate actually to attend. I attend back when I first got on in 2015. It was in Fairfax, Virginia. So we still have that opportunity to still do things that we're passionate about. Joining in force in terms of seeing policing all across the world, from the States to here, and competing. So you still have that opportunity to still be and enjoy the passion that you love if you are an athlete transitioning to policing.
I love that. I'm going to ask you one more question before we let you go, because Megan is always being like, you're not that old and you're so boring. Can you tell her I used to be fun and we used to go out like every single night?
Yes.
This was my party girl.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, it's unfortunate to realize how old we are now, but yes, we did. It's the typical life in college. You go and explore and enjoy it. I was living the life. Honestly, I still don't know how to function. I think it prepared me to be a mother because I would transition from training in the morning, practice in the morning, go to class, then go to practice at night, and then call up my friends, my girlfriends, and like, okay, we're going out. And then I'm back, and then we're back in bed at 3 a.m. And then I got to turn around and do the same thing the next morning. And Montreal, our clubs were as late as 5 a.m. or 3 a.m. So it's totally different.
The first club I ever went to was in Montreal when I was 17 years old.
Oh, yeah.
No, but Amy did really well. We had our Christmas party in December, and she could have fooled me that she hasn't been out lately because she was partying with the best of them.
Blacked out.
She blacked out. Okay, she blacked out.
All right. I guess you still got it. Not me. I'm not there.
Girl, no.
My blackouts are reading a storybook and falling asleep with my kids in bed.
Much healthier.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to your story? I just, I've known you since we were 17 and watching you, and you've always held yourself with such grace. You've never let anything that seemed like a challenge stop you. It more intrigued you to prove them wrong, everything you've done. And I think you are such an inspiration. And I'm so glad that people are going to get to hear your story, because when I think of, the people in my life, you are one of those most inspiring, because whether it's gender, race, nothing ever stopped you. You always stayed true to who you were. And if people didn't like it, then you didn't let it stop you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you know what I would say, to many or to anyone, when you look at someone, what you see on the outside is not truly everything you know about them, right? And I am fortunate for all my success, but many would not know the adversity I've gone through. We talked about losing my dad early on in life. I've also lost a younger brother in his early 20s. And throughout my life and career, there were several adversities I've gone through. I've recently recovered from suffering with kidney stones. So you have to understand that everyone has a story. Everyone has something to bring, and some kind of struggle or success. And it's a matter of how they channel that and how they utilize that to move forward, how to cope with it. And I've been fortunate to have such great support between family and friends. Amy, it doesn't go a day, whether we haven't spoken in 2, 3, 4 days, a week, however long it is, it never changes. And you've constantly always been there for me to be able to pick up the phone and have a conversation, and having someone in your corner. So I'll definitely say that I think that is what is really gave me my success, is having such a strong, unconditional love and support surrounding me through whether it be challenges or no challenges. And that was my biggest thing, is that, I work to encourage those to be above that barrier, break that barrier, no matter what it be, and whatever challenge you face, and how you're going to challenge that, and how you're going to do that to be better. Because at the end of the day, we have one life to live. Embrace it, enjoy it, and live it to the fullest, and recognize those. And I think to always be mindful of those around you. They may need a leading hand. Not everyone can be as successful. Not many ones can actually overcome those. Recognize that. And I think that's why I love serving the public. And I can't save everyone, but I hope to do my part and leave one kind of small crumb of impact in someone's life to help them. And it is rewarding. It's a rewarding job that I'm doing, to know that I know I can't help everyone, but I know that I'm doing something, and I'm trying to help in some way to make a difference. And when someone comes back and tells me, it's like, you know what, do you remember that conversation I had with them? I may not. I may have a mom brain and forget, but knowing that I've let that impact and that's made a difference for them. And it's sometimes too, people's struggle can make an impact on my own too, and make me understand how to cope with it when I come across with something like that. And that's just going from personal perspective. There are things that I've thought I would never experience that I've experienced on the job, and then me and my family dealing with it. So I think that's the message I would want to take away from my life and my journey, that it's a continuing journey. I'm excited for whatever next chapter may bring. I'm parenting 2 kids, 6 and 3, 2 boys, and who knows what their journey is going to look like.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great opportunity, and I'm sorry it took me this long.
Always worth the wait.
Meet the new iSIMS, the single talent acquisition platform that's fully future-ready. It works wherever and however you hire, with insights no one else offers. One solution that fits seamlessly into your existing tech stack, which is why IT and HR leaders trust it. With the best of enterprise-grade software and AI, iSIMS helps you identify and secure the right talent faster. iSIMS, powering exceptional hiring. Learn more at isims.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.